reforms and refusing to lend. Critics ask, why don't these companies show the kind of loyalty to America that taxpayers and Uncle Sam show to them? My next guest says, if American-based corporations want us to treat them like people, maybe they should start acting more like patriots. We're here breaking it down with the Ralph Nader.
Shit.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you've issued a call for corporate patriotism. What does that mean in a global age?
Well, I wrote an article a few weeks ago in the Chicago Tribune where I said these giant U.S. corporations are born in the U.S., chartered here. They rose to profit on the backs of American workers. They got in trouble and would go to Washington and be bailed out by American taxpayers. And some of them, when they get in trouble overseas, get the help of the U.S. Marines or the Sixth Fleet. And what is their response to the American people? Is it one of gratitude? They got all kinds of tax breaks and subsidies and weak law enforcement? No. Their response is to say, we're out of here with your jobs and your industries to communist and fascist dictators abroad, China, oligarchies in Mexico, who know how to keep workers in their place with modern equipment, serf labor, and they ship the products back here where there are more and more communities with empty factories, unemployed workers, and destroyed communities. So the question to raise here is, where's the patriotism of these corporations? Do they owe any duty for everything that our country has done for them? Are they abandoning America to countries overseas who repress their workers and block access to courts and let them pollute at will, not to mention more than a little bribery? And I think the political system, and especially next year, should have as a major issue the patriotism demands that the American people should make on these corporations.
Now, what would you say, and you make a lot of important points, but what would you say to those who say, look, from a progressive point of view, while there may be abuses by multinationals overseas, it's not in question that the spread of global capitalism, in part through companies, has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in places like China, India, across the developing world. From an American progressive point of view, this is putting tremendous strains on our middle class and on jobs. But from a progressive point of view globally, isn't there a plus side to so many people being lifted out of poverty? What's the right way for an American progressive to think about that tension?
First of all, it's not my idea of foreign aid. The best type of help we can make to the world is A, to become a humanitarian superpower with our medical advances to deal with issues like tuberculosis, AIDS, malaria, contaminated drinking water, help them build agricultural co-ops, etc. The second way we can help the world is if our companies are going to invest in these countries, let them invest for the domestic market rather than for an exporting market back here at the expense, and I repeat, at the expense of millions of American workers who are losing their jobs and their livelihood. And to those who say, well, that's the way the global system operates, well, who built that global system? Who were the powers behind NAFTA and the World Trade Organization and these pull-down trade agreements that pull American livelihoods down because they can't compete with 80 cents an hour hardworking Chinese with modern equipment? So all this should really become a major debate. The media, get rid of all this trivial stuff about who's ahead here, who had a gaffe there with a candidate. This is absurdly trivial. Matt, you're a very serious man. You believe in solutions. This is your book, The 2% Solution, came out in 2003, and it basically said,
I'm glad to know you carry it with you at all times.
Yeah, this is very important. He said, suppose someone told you that for just 2 cents on the national dollar, we could have a country where everyone had health insurance, full-time workers earned a living wage, poor children had great teachers and fixed-up schools, and politicians no longer had to grovel to wealthy donors. That's what this book is about. We've got to start thinking of solutions. What about the deficit? You deal with the deficit. A Wall Street speculation tax. Get rid of the tax havens for U.S. companies.
Ralph,
restore some of the tax cuts.
I'm with you.
Build a huge public works project to put people to work all over the country, repairing and upgrading America with jobs that cannot be exported to China.
Well, Ralph Nader, last question, just if you give us a quick up or down. Yeah. Third-party politics are still in the air for 2012. Polls showing that people are not satisfied with the two choices. Some would point to you and say, boy, that ends up giving us a situation where we end up with an outcome we didn't like. We've only got about 20 seconds. What's the right way to think about a potential third force next time?
Every 4 years, the polls come out saying 50-60% of American people want a viable major third party. The fact is they don't vote for third parties. The only way for a three-way race is a kind of repeat of the Perot campaign, maybe with someone like Mayor Bloomberg. It's going to take a multi-billionaire to get the attention of the country and get the media to pay attention. Otherwise, I think we're stuck with a two-party tyranny, very, very narrow issues discussed, and a very tedious campaign.
Ralph Nader, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Thanks very much for joining me today with your passion and perspective, as always.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Coming up on Hardball, the latest on Hurricane Irene.